It is late October. The UC basketball team is practicing for a season that will begin in about a month, and it is great today to catch up with Bearcats head coach John Brannen. Coach, as of today, if you go to the website to check out the schedule, it says, quote, "The schedule is under construction." It's a little bit like I-75. Where do things stand in terms of putting together the schedule?
I got to give Fuchs credit. That's probably the exact appropriate way to mention the schedule. We just got 2 more games we want to get. The way the NCAA has done it now is 27 games max is what you play. Typically, we play 31 with an MTE. 25 game max if you don't do a multi-team event. The multi-team event that we were involved in the NIT no longer became the NIT when the pandemic hit, and they tried to move all ESPN televised game tournaments, MTE events, to Orlando, where the NBA had theirs, and of which ESPN owns. And didn't work out through a number of different reasons, so they disbanded that. So we're now in the market of trying to get in another MTE so we can get to 27 games, with the understanding that if we don't, we already have the rest of the games scheduled, but we want to release everything at the same time.
Will the MTE multiple team event be 2 games, 4 teams, 2 games?
Yeah, and that's the thing. It won't be the event the way we know it as. So for us, it'll be 2 games, but some of the teams that play it may be 3 or 4 games because we're literally they've given us enough leeway. We can all go to a location and play, but it's not a tournament format winner. It's not like, you win, you just play multi teams. Some won 2, some won 3, some won 4. We'll go in and play 2. We'll get to our max 27, and we'll go from there if we're able to close the deal.
We do know the date of the Skyline Chili Crosstown Shootout, December 6th at Fifth Third Arena. You had some fun with that on social media. But in all seriousness, I guess the problem behind the scheduling of that game is that in a rivalry of this nature, you hate to lose your every other year home game. And although you'll play it at home, it's not going to be with the normal crowd. And that's unfortunate in a rivalry like this.
Well, I appreciate you bringing that up because I do. We had fun with it. I thought it was a neat video. We had talked about the successes of both teams in the crosstown shootout and whatnot, and some of the big games. For me, my job as University of Cincinnati head coach is to be this, to take care of this program and put this program in the best position to be successful. A very close second to that is to look out for our student athletes in terms of, in terms of their success here and beyond. And then comes our, along with our administration and then our fan base. And then the city of Cincinnati. And for me, it really came down to the fact that, guys like Mike Adams-Woods and Zach Harvey and Jeremiah Davenport, for me as well, we're looking at, one game in the crosstown shootout their senior year, my 4th year of getting a crowd. And I just didn't think that was equitable. I didn't think it was fair. And then our crowd, I know how important these games are. I know how much the crowd means to the outcomes of these games. And I just felt like there was another way to do it. And the reason I came out with this is that wouldn't have gotten out. We fought hard. And at the end of the day, being someone from Cincinnati who grew up loving the Bearcats and loving watching those 2 teams compete, I just thought it was more important to keep it than to say we were going to take a year off. And I understand Xavier and the approach they wanted to take, but I need our fans to understand that this was really looking out for our program and trying to figure out a way for our players and our fan bases and our student body to enjoy Fifth Third Arena every other year for the crosstown shootout. And unfortunately, that's not going to happen now.
It has obviously been a very unusual offseason. Aside from Zoom meetings, the players and coaches were apart for months. What did you miss?
The interaction. Before we got on this call right here, Rapp and Chris Vogt were in my office and we were just hanging out. I wasn't at my desk. I was hanging out here across from my desk and just talking. We have 7 new faces, and basketball is not a game where you just put schematics in. There's a rhythm. There's a rhythm to basketball, and there's a rhythm that takes place not just through practice, but through an understanding and a feel for who each other are. And you've experienced that being around sports your entire career, Dan. We lost that. Not only did we not have connection for most of the summer, when we came back here, we had to do most of our meetings over Zoom, even when they were on campus. So our interaction has been cut by 75%. And I think that's what's lost most. And I mentioned in some other interviews, a team that has, like for our football team, it has a lot of guys back, a lot of continuity. That's the product that comes with a great team and a great coaching staff with continuity. And that'll be our biggest challenge because we didn't have the opportunity to achieve that.
You thrive on routine and following a proven playbook for how you want the offseason and the regular season to go. That's impossible in 2020. Has any good come out of being forced to do things differently?
Well, I think it stretches you as a coach. I think it challenges you. I've probably been a little bit more my apathy. I probably understand things a little bit more. I probably, when you're stickler as we are in terms of your process, you probably have less patience for the alternative, and maybe less patience for those involved in the alternative. I feel like I've grown in that area. And then just, I didn't realize how much money my wife spends at home. I didn't realize how difficult her job was. I didn't understand how much effort my children really put into their academics and their school and being great kids. And so I learned those things, but certainly growth as a coach in terms of, okay, I got to get out of my comfort zone like I ask our players to, but not necessarily want to live it like this going forward.
There's one big change on your staff. New strength and conditioning coach Tyler Stewart, who comes from New Mexico. Have things changed much?
You know what? I think, when you're dealing with a basketball program, I'm sure it's like this in other sports as well. There's two head coaches in your program. It's the head strength and conditioning coach and the head basketball coach. And I wasn't hired to do strength and conditioning. I don't have that background, but I was hired to manage this program and to put it in the best situation to be successful. And I think when you have that, as a strength and conditioning is really, I've learned a lot about it now that I had to make a hire. So I do feel like I've got a little bit more understanding. Tyler is a guy who came strictly from basketball, which is unique because that's not usually the path of most strength coaches. He was with Coach Donovan, obviously my mentor, my college coach at the University of Florida. He is a basketball strength and conditioning coach. What I mean by that is he understands the movements that we want for a basketball standpoint, while he also has a tremendous nutrition background. Mike was unbelievable and changed bodies and changed the atmosphere here and really put our guys in the mindset of strength and conditioning. So Tyler had a group that was welcoming voice, right? It was a welcoming voice because they'd already learned from one of the best and they wanted to continue to learn. And I think Tyler has brought the nutrition piece as well. And he's someone that's fit in seamlessly with what we're doing. But at the same time, that's his area. And, one of the things I've learned in managing a program is, as you can tell on the sidelines, I'm not a strength and conditioning coach. So I've allowed him to do his job, and he's done a great job of it.
Let's take a quick look at the roster, starting with your two seniors who both received preseason all-conference honors. Keith Williams on the first team, Chris Vogt on the second team. What are you expecting out of each of them?
I want to take the next step in ownership of this program. I want to take the next step in ownership of their game. Keith, the next step for him is, I tell people all this, great style play, great fits, 6'4", 6'5", 215, athletic, strong, multi-position player. I want him to take next step defensively. He should be an elite defender. We met with Trey Scott last year. I did one-on-one meeting, said we want you to be double-digit rebounds and defensive player of the year. He did both of those, and he'll be in the NBA. I firmly believe that just because of who he is and how his work ethic. Keith has the same opportunity right now. I want to see him take the next step in the defensive piece. Keith's elite the last 10 minutes of game defensively. I want him to be elite for 40 minutes. Chris Vogt, really took the next step as a player last year. Really want him to continue. He's become a much better passer. I think double teams now won't affect him as much. In fact, I hopefully will have him get double teamed because I think we got more shooter around him. So he's taking the next step there. And the ownership piece is meaning the sense of urgency. Jaron and Trey understood what the sense of urgency meant as seniors, okay? When you're a sophomore and a junior, you don't understand what it means when those guys are saying, come on, guys, we got to pick it up. Jaron and Trey, sense of urgency after being 7-5 in the non-conference, all be a killer non-conference schedule, really kicked in during conference play. I hope Chris and Keith learned that, and we have that from the beginning of the year.
Cult hero Mamadou Diarra is back for his redshirt junior year. He was something of an afterthought early in the season last year, but by the end of the year, he was a key role player for your team. Where does that put him now going into this year?
Tim Mamadou's we just met today. He's really taking the next step, Dan, and you'll see it when you come to our practices in terms of his understanding of the game, how we play. Last year he didn't really. He was running around without really knowledge of what he was doing. This year, he's got complete understanding of what we do. And it's amazing what happens. You stop thinking, you're able to react a lot faster, right? You're able to do things at a quicker pace. And he is right now grading out on our ball screen defense in practice at over 90%, which is unbelievable. And really impressed with his growth and excited about his next step.
Let's move on to sophomore Zach Harvey. He was solid off the bench last year, despite having missed most of the previous year in prep school with a serious ankle injury. Do you expect a big jump out of Zach?
We hadn't practiced yet. So he's had some injuries here early. So, I hope so. But, obviously we got to get him back on the practice floor.
Is it the ankle? Is that
it's not as much the ankle. I think he's having some other issues with some other spots that have come up. So I'm hoping to get back on the practice floor this week. But a really good off season. I do want him to take the next step. I know he wants to as well. He was injured oftentimes last year, so we'll see if he can get back on the court soon.
Micah Adams-Woods had a great freshman year, starting 19 games. How about the next step for him?
Well, I made mention the other day, if you came to one practice, you'd say, well, I didn't really notice what Micah did today. if you come to a week worth of practices, you recognize he's one of our better players. His ability to defend. You play as a freshman when you defend and don't turn the ball over. And he did both of those at a really, really high rate. He's silky smooth. He makes the right plays. He never gets rushed. But I go back to his defensive mentality. Now, Micah went home for the pandemic, came back and lost 20 pounds. And I was really worried about that. And he's put the 20 pounds back on now. And, different guys react differently to the pandemic. Dan, I'm sure you came back just chiseled after the pandemic.
Working on it.
But he's a guy that will be heavily counted on, particularly because of his experience.
Jeremiah Davenport from Moeller High School suffered a knee injury late in the year. What's his status physically?
Two knee injuries. Had a knee injury early in the year and had another knee injury very similar later in the year. He's back now practicing. The thing with Jeremiah is he plays the game at warp speed at all times. He just plays extremely hard. He's been a guy that's I think he's understands our system more than he did last year. So just keeping him healthy and making sure, keep him slowed down on offense a little bit, while also keeping that energy and intensity defensively that he pretty much brings every day.
All right. As you referred to early in the conversation, you have 7 newcomers. Let's start with a couple of veteran transfers who are on the roster now. David DeJulius, who comes from Michigan. He's got 2 years left. Rapolis Ivanauskas from Colgate, the former Patriot League Player of the Year. He's got 1 year left. Describe each of them.
Well, Rap's the guy who came in here to Colgate and had 21 on us and, dominated the second half. And, reminds Chris Vogt of that every day, I believe, and me, I think. He brings it every day. Hard worker. One of the big reasons why we signed those guys is I thought that we needed some leadership. Keith and Chris are dynamic, all-conference guys, but they're not real vocal. And I felt like Rap and David were from really good programs, and I knew their personalities a little bit, and they really brought a leadership that plays off Keith and Chris really well. So I think that's really helped us. That first and foremost. But specifically to Rap, he's a multi-position big. He's really, really physical. I think he's really challenged Chris in terms of some of the practices. I put them on separate teams some. I think he's making Chris better every day, as I know Chris is making him as well. He really passes the ball well. He's a good fit for our high post offense. We like to bring our bigs up to the high post. So I anticipate our offense being a lot quicker, in large part to Rap's ability to make reads and decisions. David is dynamic with the ball. He came up in the college ranks in terms of 2 years in Michigan with Coach Beeline and Coach Howard, is really playing off the ball. He'll have the opportunity to play both this year, but he's a guy that tremendous work ethic, tremendous toughness, both mentally and physically, understands what success looks like, but more importantly, what it takes to be successful. And because of that, he's really been able to translate that to a lot of his teammates.
You have 5 freshmen. Let's start with a scouting report on the twin brothers from Minnesota, Gabe and Mason Madsen.
Yeah, the fraternal twins. You won't mistake those guys from being identical. And different personalities. It's funny, having twins myself is, I think it helped in the recruiting process because it was fun to talk to their parents about how different they really are, yet how, they both are really successful basketball players. Gabe is just, 6'5". He's already gained 14 pounds since he's been here. Dynamic scorer, can put the ball on the floor, can shoot. Learning the defensive piece. I joke with his dad all the time, who was his high school coach. Like, you guys coached a lot of offense up there. I know he's going to be really good here. Great teammate, has a chance to really be a dynamic player for us. And, his brother Mason is somebody I believed in from the beginning. Tough, big time shot maker. He's been a better shooter than I anticipated. He's really impacted practice here early as a freshman, and as a guy that just exudes confidence. It's funny because when we're in drills, it reminds me of my twins. Gabe will make a play, and then Mason will make a play, and then they'll both be in the drill next, and Mason will try to push Gabe out of the way so he can be the first one in the drill. And then Gabe will figure out a way to get around. It's funny to watch those two, but they're both you can tell they came from a tremendous family, and both came from coaches' kids, which is important to me.
Point guard Mike Saunders is unmistakable because of his bushy blonde hairdo. He's a guy that you've known since he was in 7th grade and presumably have wanted to coach him for that long. Why?
Well, I tell you, I've known him longer than anybody in our program, including Chris Vogt. He's another coach's kid. His wingspan, Dan, is almost 6 inches longer than his height. So in basketball terms, most human beings walking around, their wingspan's the same as their height. in basketball, our not prerequisite, but our criteria that we would really like to fill is 4 inches longer than your height. His is 6. So to be 5'10", he's got tremendously long arms. He's as fast as anybody in the country, and he's extremely physical. He has also impacted practice in a big way here early on. So again, they're freshmen. You know how they're going to react when they get on the court. But Mike's, I got a lot of faith in Mike and a lot of belief in Mike.
Tari Eason from Seattle was the 3A Washington Player of the Year. What does Tari bring to the table?
I'm telling a story. So when I was coming out of college, I thought I was going to go to the NBA senior year. Averaged 20 points a game my senior year. I'll never forget, an NBA scout called me one time and said, "John, you play the game. You look like you're playing as hard as you're playing really hard." I'm like, "Yeah, I really am." He goes, "Unfortunately, you won't be in the NBA because you look like you're playing really hard." And Tari is playing hard, but doesn't look like he's playing hard. That's how talented he is. He's long. He makes the game look easy, yet he's out there flying all over the place. He's a willful learner. He wants to get better. He's got some habits that got to improve in terms of some different things that he understands, and we're hitting on each and every day. But he's dynamic in a lot of ways, and it may take time to get him fully there, but it won't be because of a sense of urgency and talent.
Last but not least, Victor Lakin, 6'11", from Russia. How did you wind up signing somebody from Russia?
So, we'd recruited Europe quite a bit during the course of our time in Northern Kentucky, and certainly when we got here. And Coach Dwyer had been the lead person in our recruitment of overseas kids, not just Europe. And he saw Victor in a tournament when he was over there, when he was one of the NKU assistants, and kind of marked his name down as somebody that could be a high major guy going forward. And he was available, and we got to know his people and had a need. And I scoured the tape because then the pandemic, because the plan for me is always to go out there in the spring, because you normally sign your foreign kids in the spring. So I was going to fly out in the spring, watch him play, work out, meet with his family. And that got taken away from us. So we had to make our first decision off tape. And luckily, Coach Dwyer had seen him play. He's been hurt. He had knee surgery, so he's not back yet. And then we had a really tough time getting him over here during this time. So he's really been limited in his access to not only our program, but to the United States.
You said something the other day that made me chuckle. The quote is, "Usually I hate my teams right now," which I took to mean not personally, but that the flaws stand out at this time of year. But that's apparently not the case this year. Why?
Well, it scares me because we've won 4 straight championships. And my wife is like, "You're not complaining right now." And I'm like, "I know, I'm worried because I haven't complained as much." And hate's a strong word. I was being cynical, but basically, I struggle with where we're at. We don't have enough in. We're not good at this. We don't have our identity yet. And we don't have any of those things right now either. But this group has given everything they have to this point. And when you coach, when you see that, you fall in love quickly with your team. So, we're not there yet nearly, and I don't know what it'll look like against outside competition. We won't know that until we play a regular game because they've taken away scrimmages and exhibitions. But that's what I was referring to.
How do you miss Trayvon Scott and Jaron Cumberland?
Trayvon Scott, I miss his everyday presence. His teammates miss him because he would be 3-1 on everybody else. Play 37 minutes a game, and when I say 3-1, he would do drills 3 times compared to everybody else's once. Most well-conditioned athlete I've ever been around. His teams rarely lost in practice. His intensity and focus was legendary, and is legendary, and should be. Jaron Cumberland, gamer, put the ball in his hands when you need it. Tremendous IQ, physicality. I talked to Jaron last week. He's like, "Coach, when can I come over?" I'm like, "Anytime you want, as long as Bob Mangino lets you in," because of COVID. But those guys will be missed tremendously when the games come. And then I made mention the other day that 13,000 people are going to be missed. I put together a schedule, make no bones about it, because I believe in our organization. I think that's what it takes to get the NCAA tournament and have success. But if we didn't have the home court advantage we had, I wouldn't have done those things. So I really believe in our fan base as well.
Keith Williams did a news conference the other day where he spoke about how close this team is and how the buy-in is really good. Is that unusual, considering that you have 5 freshmen and 2 transfers?
Well, I think it's a product. I think what Keith was referring to is accurate. I think it's a product now of a coaching staff that has a recruiting class in. I think the players coming in have an expectation and understanding of the style of play, an expectation and understanding of the culture, an expectation and understanding of who I am. which Keith now has and some of the other guys have. So I think you have that coming in, and you have guys returning that have been around us for a year, and it's like dating. A year in, you probably have more of a sense of comfort and understanding, and when you work with somebody for a year, it helps. So I think he was probably referring to that.
Season's about a month away. On behalf of Bearcat fans, we can't wait. Coach, appreciate the time.
Thanks, guys, and it's good seeing you, Dan. Remote. You can't do basketball off a screen, can you?
You can. I would prefer not to. It can be done. It sometimes is done. We'll have to wait and see. But hopefully I will be there in person for every game.
That'd be great. Go Bearcats. Thanks.